Apparently, word is getting back to Dan Bongino, who is looking for a teepee for his bunghole, and who is the current winner, at least at this point, of our 5 Eggs Award. That he's gotten 5 eggs. 5 eggs! More than any other person in our in our repertoire of clips to go to. And it seems that our word on the street and the clips that I'm doing about Dan are getting back to young Dan, and he's having an emotional reaction to it because I guess being called a dummy is starting to dig at him. He's starting to suspect that it's quite possible that we're correct. And this one's called "Are Democrats Really This Stupid?" It's got a whopping 831 views. I don't think you're getting your money's worth, Dan. By the way, is it Dan Bongino? I can't tell from the number of logos on the screen behind you. Perhaps put it on your mic box in front of your stand there. Maybe even rotate it so that people have to take effort to read it. Therefore, it psychologically makes them more engaged. Or perhaps you can just keep getting every time you're on. Okay, so this is, are Democrats really this stupid? This is, I don't know which Democrats he's talking to or about. We will find out.
Drudge right now. If it's still up, I'm not sure. With the
White House Border Patrol with whip, obviously horrific.
Sure, by the way. White House Border Patrol with whip, obviously horrific. This is on Drudge. You see a Border Patrol agent on a horse.
It's the reins of the horse that he had, by the way. That not a whip.
According to the picture, Drudge Report and others that have put this headline up apparently want you to believe this is a whip. It's a whip. The White House, of course, is forced to respond to that. Now, if you are not a liberal, meaning you're an intelligent person, because liberals are colossal morons.
For the record, I absolutely qualify as a liberal. Please continue.
Stupidest people on planet Earth.
Oh, all right. I bet you could give me a run for my money, though, Dan.
You would realize that is not, in fact, a whip. It is a rein for a horse, and they are not.
Yeah, I just spotted that. I just saw the picture myself.
Whipping anyone. They are turning illegal.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Excuse me, dum-dum. You can absolutely whip someone with anything. It doesn't have to be a whip for you to whip someone. As a matter of fact, using an extra long rein to whip someone works just fine. You ever been whipped with a belt? Has anybody ever come up to you, nice whip you got around your waist? Is that a dress whip or a casual whip? It's a belt, but I can whip you with it. See how that works? Jesus, this is dumb.
Crossers back to where they came from. Now, if you're a liberal, you believe people got whipped. He was telling me he was talking to a bunch of people. No, Jim, I'm sorry. Producer Jim had this argument with a bunch of people yesterday. Again, they're liberals. Folks, I want you to understand, liberals are not smart people.
Okay, why are you showing a still image and not the actual video? So hold on, let's see. I want to see where people are so dumb that they're not grasping what's going on here. Let's see. Border Patrol. Whipping, let's say, just give him the benefit with reins of horse. Let's see if we get some. Here you go. Yeah. Border Patrol agents are using reins like whips to round up Haitian immigrants. How is that? U.S. officials to probe whip-like cords used against migrants. That's their reins that they're holding. This guy right here. This is the. This is Al Jazeera. This guy is using Al Jazeera is calling it whips.
No, shortcuts.
Orange whip. 3 orange whips. Yeah, whip-like cords. Yeah, here we go. So there you go. Yeah, dude's. He's using extra long reins to whip at people with them. Photographs and reports of border agents on horseback using what appear to be whips, okay, on Haitian migrants. Does the administration think that's an appropriate tactic? Can you speak to that? Or people are upset about that? Yeah, understandably so. I've seen some of the footage. I don't have the full context. I can't imagine what context that would make that appropriate, but I don't have additional details. And certainly I don't have additional context, April. I don't think anyone seeing the footage would think that was acceptable or appropriate. Yeah, so they're using the reins of their horses, the extra long reins on there, specifically for that purpose, to whip people, and that's exactly what's going on. But this is, Dan Bongino thinks this is a gotcha because, and this doesn't apply to all conservatives. I'm going to do Dan Bongino's crowd a favor that Dan Bongino is not willing to do, to respond in kind with, is that I don't believe all conservatives are as dumb as Dan Bongino, because if that were true, we would have far more car accidents and people riding their dirt bikes off of barns into kiddie pools full of fresh cement, and going, watch this. Not all conservatives not only are as dumb as Dan Bongino, they couldn't possibly be. Just for the record. So here we go. There we go.
Are bathed in ignorance. The evidence is everywhere. I'll prove it to you at the end of this segment with a clip by Bill Maher. They don't know anything. I'm sorry to tell you. These are stupid people.
Again, everybody who's described this, except for that one clip you held up from Drudge, was it? Described it as whip-like. Again, Arizona Central, Al Jazeera, The Independent, Border Patrol didn't go far enough around patients. Really, the Arizona Central Border Patrol agents seem to be using horse reins as whips. That's TMZ. Anger as border boss defends using whips in round. Let's see. Footage also showed border patrol appear to threaten migrants with a whip or horse rein, which has been condemned by both Biden and the Trust Index. Did not use. There you go. This is the pushback. Did not use whips when confronting migrants. They used reins as whips. I mean, we're splitting whips at this point. Here we go. Border Patrol. This is the Daily Caller. Horseback Border Patrol agents accused of whipping migrants with reins reassigned to desk duties. Yeah. But please tell me how, let me guess. Are we going into the same category of like calling it's not a clip, it's a magazine? God, people are so stupid.
Ed, why are you calling liberals stupid? Because they're stupid. They are I'm really sorry, they're stupid. If you think that's a whip, you are a dumb person.
Most people don't. They're couching this because the people are looking at footage on their phones or other stuff, but it looks like a whip, but it's clearly a rein. If you look even further, all the stories about it have said using a whip or reins or using their reins to whip someone. The distinction is that they are using something to whip people. It's got to be difficult going through life this confused, isn't it, Dan? Can you imagine, every day just sitting down in front of a microphone and a camera and having to defend yourself against the accusations that you're a stupid, stupid man? It must be very difficult for you, Dan.
It's not a whip. That's not Indiana Jones on the horse. That's a Border Patrol agent with horse reins. If you think...
What's he using the horse reins for? What's he doing with them? What is he, like when my dad gave me a whooping when I was a kid, and he actually used a whoop. It was very hard to find.
It's a whip, and you're a liberal. You're an idiot. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, now address the fact that it was a rein and he was using it to whip people. Do that part. Because nobody who watches my show thinks it was a whip. Nobody that I'm aware of thinks it was a whip. We're all aware it was a rein and they were using their reins to whip people.
Media thinks you're an idiot. Here, the El Paso Times, apparently. On this Twitch, he covered this. The agent swung his whip menacingly, reports the El Paso Times, and major national outlets pass it on. It's not
Well, no, but they've all addressed it since and said with reins or said reins. Why the hell does Twitchy and the El Paso Times? Why is that liberals now? Is the El Paso Times the arbiter of liberal thought?
Whip. If you think it was a whip, you are probably a liberal, which means you're a moron. It just wasn't a whip. Okay?
Did he whip someone with it? Was he whipping somebody with a leather strand, a strap of leather? Was he whipping people with it? It wasn't a whipping post. It was just a fence post we tied you to and then whipped you.
Here's this reporter. What's her name? Shannon Pettypiece? Is that even a real name?
I don't know. Bongino. Tell me, is Shannon Pettypiece a real name? Dan Bongino, who's looking for TP for his bunghole.
She works for NBC. She's the White House reporter. Quotes this piece. The agent swung.
Yes, she took a quote from the El Paso Times. Right?
Whip menacingly, charging his horse. It's not a whip. By the way, where are the fact checkers? Answer: the fact checkers are nowhere because they're clowns. Fact checkers aren't serious people. They're leftist propagandists.
Well, and then obviously they're too stupid to know what a real whip is.
Media, again, mold stupid liberals and get them to believe things that aren't true? Very simply. They tell...
Hey, moron. Did they whip someone with it? I'll give you an example. Is a pistol a whip? No? Well, then it must be impossible to pistol whip someone. That's how do you even pistol whip someone? Can you shoot bullets from a whip? Can you swing can you crack a pistol without firing it?
Lies that are easily falsified by doing just a modicum of basic research is a whip. No, it's a rein. And dopey liberals who never create a choke point by doing their own homework just believe it. Like the clown morons they are.
I get the pejoratives. I get that that's what you're stuck with. I get it, Dan. I mean, I know you don't have much else in there bouncing around in your dome. We all understand. Don't we, guys? We get it. You got a very limited vocabulary to pull from. You're very easily confused. We know this. You can't seem to process the idea that you could whip someone with something else, and that all the stories have mitigatory language about it. It appears to be a whip or a rein, but they're using their reins to whip people, and that's clearly not right, and therefore people were disturbed by it, and therefore it's wrong behavior, and those guys have been assigned to desk duty because they were doing that. Dan, you're a dum-dum, and you just learn to live with it. I think that's the easiest thing. I think if you just learn to kind of like lean into your dummy, tendencies, it'll be a lot easier on you in the future. Just go, I don't know. I don't know. I don't get it. Just say that a lot. And deep breaths.
You got NBC puts it out there. Doesn't bother to fact check that at all. Then you have other morons. Joy Reid, the gold medal winner in...
Wonderful. These images from 2021 or 1851. Sawyer Hackett says rounding up refugees with whips. This is unfathomable cruelty towards people fleeing disaster and political ruin. The administration must stop this. This is beyond repulsive. The images from 2021 or 1851 because it's black people being whipped. That's her reaction to it. She doesn't seem to care whether it's a rein or not. Whipping is going on.
Dopey media talking head Olympics. You can always count on her to say something stupid. She is incapable of doing even basic research. Joe has been researching her homophobic blog post for a long time. He has not been able to come up with an answer. She said she had the FBI on it. Joe's been at it. He's been very busy. Joe has not been able to come up with an answer if Joy wrote those posts or not, which is weird. Well, here's Joy Reid. This is beyond repulsive. Are these images from 2021 or 1851? Of course, making a comparison, what you would think, to slavery and elsewhere, because that's what Joy does, because she is the queen of misinformation.
Well, why? Are we to assume that that horseback riding people were not capable of doing similar things back then, using their reins as whips? Where's the confusing part of it? I mean, obviously, The Sawyer Hackett says with whips, but she says, are these images from 2021 or 1851? This looks like that kind of. I mean, obviously, it's from 2021. That guy has got takeout.
Here's another example of why liberals are so ignorant. The media tells them things. Liberals don't create a choke point for the media. They don't fact check the media.
Yes. Dan Bongino always makes sure that he chokes out the media every time he can. Any story he gets, he tries to get it in a chokehold and squeeze the life out of it. It's just how he handles bad news.
Just propagate media lies. This is a lie. It was a lie.
Well, no, people are being whipped. You haven't addressed that yet. Address that part of it. Yes, they're being whipped with these things, but they're not actual whips. They're reins. They're taking their reins and whipping people. It's not the same as a whip. Because I'm saying that, because it's attached to a horse. And therefore, explain that part, stupid.
Count on these so-called thought leaders on the left to propagate the lie, and they never check it. I promise you, I hear information from people, I check it, even on the conservative side. That's why sometimes we're not first, but we're usually right.
Very seldomly right, for the record. And you often, as much time as you allegedly take thinking things through, you have some of the most idiotic takes we've ever seen. Am I not right, gang? We've seen some like amazing levels of confusion and like brain fog level responses to regular news stories from Dan. We could always count on a Dan Bongino clip for the dumbest take. I'm not kidding. Like there's meaner takes. There's more I guess, politically opportunist takes. Glenn Beck would be, in that zone. Ben Shapiro. But if you want the absolute dumbest take, Dan Bongino's your guy. And by the way, this is not me saying that all conservatives are stupid. Oh, by no means. I'm being a lot more generous to people than Dan Bongino's Judeo-Christian values will allow him to be. I'm saying that Dan Bongino is a dum-dum. It's brutal. We're halfway through this clip. What do you think the odds are? He goes, yes, it's a rein, and they are whipping people with their reins, but it's not the same thing. Halfway through this, you think he turns that corner?
Here's another example of why libs are so darn stupid all the time. They was whipped. Here's an article by CNBC by Berkeley Lovelace Jr., a human being apparently incapable of doing anything real for a living outside of propagating fake news. Here, listen to this headline. This is, again, why liberals are in their house with a double mask, 3 face shields, wrapped in a bubble suit with gloves on, spraying themselves with Lysol every 10 minutes because of headlines like this by Berkeley Lovelace Jr. Love to see Berkeley Lovelace Sr. COVID is
Why?
actually America's deadliest pandemic as U.S. fatalities surpass 1918 flu estimates. Oh, my God.
All right, push back on it. Let's hear it. Show us the details. It was actually, we think it was 100 million.
I can't take this stupid today, folks. I'm sorry. So again, you want to see why liberals are so dumb? They believe the Border Patrol are whipping people at the southern border.
They are whipping people at the southern border. They're using their horse reins to do it. There's video of it. You didn't play the video. You showed a picture because you were making the point that people were saying whip when it's actually a rein, but you wouldn't show the footage that actually shows them whipping people because then you'd have to eat your entire first half of this stupid chunk. What's your answer to the thing you just put up?
And that COVID is the most deadly pandemic the U.S. has ever seen, at least since 1918, because they can't read and do homework. If you go down the piece all the way towards the end, Berkeley Lovelace Jr. is not counting on you actually reading the piece. He's just counting on you clicking on the headline. You will find out that it's not even close to the most deadly pandemic we've seen in U.S. history because you adjust these things for population size. For Berkeley Lovelace Jr., if you lived on an island with 50 people.
I see. Because the percentage of people was way lower, the number of dead should be a lot higher now. It'd have to be, 60% of the populace. Is that where he's going? not the actual number of dead. So statistically by population, they didn't say per capita. They meant per person. But that's where he's going with this.
Right? And 10 people died, right? So 10 people died. You'd be like, that's 1/5 of the island. My gosh, that's really bad. And then 50 years later, 12 people die on an island from a different pandemic. Oh my gosh, more people died. It's the deadliest thing ever. And you find out 5,000 people lived on the island. Would you say this? No, you wouldn't, because Berkeley Lovelace Jr. is apparently unaware of how to do even basic math. So hysterical headline, and down later in the piece, he knows, or she, I don't even know what it is, he knows liberals won't read this thing, right? Don't care.
You don't even care who wrote the article. I would, a little detail, if I might, Dan, while you're jumping through your shirt collar about this. Let's just use your per capita versus percentage of population argument. Also in 1918, when this happened, and the volume of human beings died, we had no vaccine for it. We had none of the medical interventions that we had. We had none of the ways to inform the public the same way. A lot of people were getting their mail by horseback still. You couldn't warn people to protect themselves. It took a lot longer. There were large swaths of the country where that information trickled down, took so long that more people died. And even with all of the modern affectations, all the extra stuff, our entire healthcare system, all the available technology we have, the number of human beings who died is higher from a pandemic.
By the way, here, down further, it says in 1918, for example, the U.S. population, that's when the Spanish flu epidemic broke out, the U.S. population was less than a third of today's, with an estimated 103 million people living in the U.S. Today, there are nearly 330 million people living in the U.S. That means the 1918 flu killed 1 of every 150 Americans, compared to 1 in 500 who have died from COVID.
Yeah, 1 in 500 is way better. Secondarily, most people who were alive at that time didn't fly on an airplane in their entire lives. Most of the people who were alive at that time they did not have a car. So people's interactions were separated by large swaths of land. So the ability for the disease to make it into places and spread the way it does now with our modern transportation, our modern interactions. There weren't any Bonnaroos. There weren't any Lollapaloozas. There weren't giant festivals. That shit didn't exist. They didn't have the ability to have super spreader events put on by the former president at regular interval to spike deaths throughout the area. It would have been worse if we did.
And that's assuming dying.
That's also assuming we're done with COVID, right? That's assuming COVID is over now. It was 1 in 1,000. Now it's 1 in 500. There's no reason to believe that in the Midwest and the red states and in places where they're blowing off masks and vaccines, that we couldn't get to a number closer to that population number, because assholes like this think that anybody who's concerned about it, who wears masks and whatnot, is a stupid liberal who deserves to be mocked for being concerned about the spread of the Delta variant. Even though they've been vaccinated, they're concerned about assholes like this, who knows that most of his listeners won't get vaccinated or refuse to, and therefore they will be the first to die.
COVID and not with COVID, which are not the same thing. Again, why are liberals so stupid? Because they are guided around like mules, like stupid mules, like beasts of burden by their media masters.
Well, and we do work for a living, yeah.
Never, ever bother to fact check anything ever. You know who explained this perfectly? A liberal, by the way, Bill Maher, again, about a week ago, talking about how liberals never do their homework and are morons, and they think things that aren't true because they're idiots. They follow Joy Reid.
Is that how it works?
CNBC and elsewhere, hysterical headlines, and they never, ever do any homework. And then their big tech people block them from getting to the truth with things about ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine.
That's if only we had gotten ivermectin early on, we could all be sucking horse paste and have survived all this. And hydroxychloroquine is great if you haven't developed any symptoms at all.
and elsewhere, and they love
80% of people who get COVID and carry it don't develop symptoms.
block because they want to be servants. They love serving their media and government gods. Here's Bill Maher summing up their ignorance perfectly. Check this out.
I have to cite a survey that was in the New York Times, which is a liberal paper, so they weren't looking for this answer. But they were talking about this. The question was, what do you think the chances are that you would have to go to the hospital if you got COVID? Mm-hmm. And Democrats thought that was way higher than Republicans. 41% of Democrats, and the answer is between 1% and 5%.
Okay.
41% of Democrats thought it was over 50%. Another 28% thought it was 20 to 49%. So 70% of Democrats thought it was way, way, way higher than it really was.
Right.
Liberal media has to take a little responsibility for that, for scaring the shit out of people. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's much harder for every touring act to sell tickets in blue states.
Oh, interesting.
They're afraid to go out of the house.
I see.
Whereas in red states, it's all good to go.
Yeah, but it's also in red states, it's super spreader events. It's not good to go. This is what's causing the spike in those states. And yes, a lot of people are overreacting to whether or not they'll be hospitalized. The concern for a lot of people, myself included, is not necessarily that if I get it, I'll be hospitalized. A lot of people don't feel that way. The concern, and I don't know who they were asking, the concern for me is what's the potential for me giving it to my kid who can't get vaccinated yet, and what reaction would his body have? Does he possibly have something that might make him more susceptible? And what a horrifying way to start his life out with that kind of damage. So that's my point of concern. I'm erring with an abundance of caution. But even still, this is not an explanation, by the way, of what he's saying. This is about caution and fear-mongering in the news necessarily.
Here you go. So if you're in a blue state, don't go out, sit at home, die in your house, wait to die because the lethal coronavirus, the worst pandemic in human history, is going to come to get you. Yeah, none of that's actually true.
Nah, it's not actually true. As a matter of fact, there's not even a red state spike right now. I don't even know what, I can't even joke about this. Like I was going to joke about, I don't even know what red state people are worried about. Why don't they just go out in mass and hang out and make out and pass it around, have little COVID parties and shit like that. Let's see. COVID rates, U.S. states. 680,000 dead people. There you go. Here's your California being supposedly a big blue state, but technically we know because of the recall and the like that the state is pretty much half and half, just about. And a lot of the folks that you're seeing pass away are Republicans in the state. Texas, second with the number of deaths, 62,000 people dead in that state, 3.9 million cases. Florida, there's New York, Illinois, a few more. There you go. Let's see if we go by, does it allow me to stack them up by deaths? Can we check them by deaths? There we go. Deaths, California, Texas, New York, Florida, Pennsylvania, Illinois, New Jersey, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio. And this isn't people just with damage too. That's the other thing. So it's people who were on who were intubated, might need a lung transplant, blah, blah, blah. That's another segment of it. And then these are the cases of people who've gotten it. And that's how they spread it. And that's who dies. And in all this, 600 and where is it? 680,000 dead in the United States.
You go to a red state, people go out and live their lives. Proper precautions, do your thing.
Proper precautions, do your thing. Oh, you mean like beat people up because you don't want to wear a mask? Let's see. Texas man attacks over mask thumb. What was that? Yeah. you know, just go out, do your thing, bite somebody's thumb off because they tell you to wear a mask in a hospital because you're going to the hospital and they have a mask policy. Just, just bite a dude. That's all you do. Who cares? The guy literally, a man is accused of assaulting a security guard, including biting his thumb. Police said after becoming upset over a hospital's mask policy in Wichita Falls, Texas. Chad Stalins, 37, was arrested Monday on charge of assault on a public servant after becoming upset with Kel West Hospital's mask policy after he was asked to leave several times. Stalin attacked a security guard, striking him in the face and neck area, said a Facebook post. Stalins then bit the thumb of the security guard after he lifted his hands to push Stalins away, causing severe injury. This isn't the first time the hospital's had to deal with someone getting upset over the mask mandate at the hospital. We don't know if they're coming in because they have COVID. We don't know what their symptoms are until they arrive with a mask on. And certainly, if they're going back to visit, we can't go see patients if they're on the floor and not have a mask on. The guard was treated at the scene. I mean, lucky to be injured at the hospital. Apparently, he was just at the barbershop when he got his mugshot done. Just do your thing. Standard precautions. Be prepared to bite someone's thumb.
I feel sorry for these liberals. I do. Because they choose to be.
I appreciate that. That's very sweet of you. I appreciate your concern, dum-dum. We're okay. We're going to be all right. We're all right. We're not afraid. We're just taking reasonable precautions. We know what the limits are on the Delta variant. We're monitoring whether or not you'd need a booster shot, but we're going to get through this wave like we expect to, and we'll take care of ourselves and our loved ones and the like, and we'll be the ones going out knowing full well that we're okay. And if you don't get vaccinated, you'll have to wear a mask someplace, and then you can go bite someone's thumb.
Stupid. Imagine what kind of life that must be. Choose to be.
It's pretty cool, actually. I have a pretty great life. It's really fun, actually. We laugh a lot. I have live shows. Like all my shows. Yeah, obviously you got to be vaccinated, so that makes it a lot easier.
So dumb all the time to never believe anything. What you believe is wrong. Chance of being hospitalized 50%. It's actually 1 to 5%. You're off by a factor of 10.
Yeah, except it depends on what region you're in as well, too, and whether you're obese or not. So let's say, did they add in that poll, for example, whether somebody had a comorbidity? Was there anything in that poll, and this is something we'd have to ask Bill Maher, that noted that the person being asked, they said, what are your chances of ending up in the hospital if you got COVID? Were they asking people who were obese, had an immunological disease, had other issues, that would make them believe that their chance is very high? Or was the question, do we think, what do you think the odds are that anybody who gets COVID ends up in the hospital is? Because I think you would have gotten a different number. Because anybody can just look at the kind of generalized facts of who's gotten it and who needs hospitalization, who doesn't. But yeah, anyways, Panic at the Disco.